As Jesus continues his teachings on the Sermon on the Mount, he next looks at oaths and what they mean for us. So this is the Sermon on the Mount and integrity.
As we look at Jesus' fourth exegesis on Torah about the greater righteousness, we find him focusing in on the issue of oaths. Now, oaths were very common in the ancient world. They're found across cultures: Greek culture, Roman culture, Jewish culture. And in essence, they were a way of making sure that the person speaking is telling the truth, or that the person is going to do what they will do. At the heart of this is the idea that if you broke your oath, there would be kind of some curse or some form of divine retribution. In other ways, you would expect this person to now carry out what they said, because they would be afraid of the divine consequences of not doing what they said. So whilst you may not fully trust them, now you know they'll come through because they're going to do it out of fear for what the deity of their culture asks them to do. Now, as I said, Jews were a culture that did do oaths. Well, almost. There were some groups, such as the Essenes, that tried to refrain from oath making. So Jesus' position here about not making oaths isn't unique to Jesus, but it is rare enough to be distinctive. Now, in fact, in the Jewish tradition, there had been a prohibition against swearing using the name of God. It's there in the commandments. You shall not take the Lord's name in vain. So the Jews knew that if they tried to swear, make an oath on God's name, and then they didn't follow through on it, they had profaned the name of God. And so they'd actually developed a whole system of getting around it. We call these like circumlocutions, getting around, circumvent, or substitutions, things you could put in place of God's name to still be swearing. And we see some of those listed in this passage. Swear on heaven, or on the throne of God, or on Jerusalem. And in fact, it was understood that the further from the name of God you could get your allusion to God, the less risk you would be in. Now, that should show us what the heart really is behind these circumlocutions. The heart was very much, well, I'm really not going to follow through on this, so I'm going to minimize the divine risk to me by doing this circumlocution. And if they were trying to reduce the risk, they were trying to make it so the consequences would be less. Big indicator, not trustworthy, not wanting to follow through, have no integrity. And integrity is really the key word here. It's what Jesus is pushing out when he says, let your yes be yes, let your no be no. You see, a person who is whole and complete, a person who is flourishing, who's embraced that greater righteousness, has integrity. The greater righteousness is about someone who cares for others and for God, and so they're not going to cheat another person. There's no need for an oath. Someone who is whole and complete in God has integrity. So when Jesus says, let your yes be yes and your no be no, he's casting this vision of a people who are so flourishing him, so full of love for others, so complete and whole in their restoration in him, that they are able to walk, talk, and live in a place of integrity that people trust, that people know to be true. So as you pursue Jesus, as you pursue wholeness and righteousness and completeness in your life, ask yourself this question. Are you a person of integrity? Are you a person who can let your yes be yes and your no be no? And in doing that, are you showing your wholeness to the world?